Just a quick introduction to me. My name is Daniel Heary. I'm the Vice Chair of Cumbria Social Enterprise Partnership, and I'm going to be explaining a bit about social enterprises within the county and then further afield. And then we're going to be hearing from some social enterprises who are actually going out there and delivering some really great work around the county. So there's the programme. You should be able to see that on your screens now. Basically, Martin's going to give a quick talk about the County Council, their view on social enterprises. Then I'm going to be focusing on Cumbria and the UK. Then we've got Rachel talking about Time to Change, West Cumbria. We've got Rebecca talking about creative well-being, and then Richard will talk about GLL Greenwich Leisure. We'll be able to take questions and answers during the presentations, but then we'll have a general session at the end, and then we'll wrap up by looking at the current support available through CSEP. So what's happening at the moment in terms of new social enterprises being started up, and also which social enterprises are getting support at the moment. Okay, so just in terms of housekeeping, we've got 12 participants on the webinar today. There is a feature where you can type in questions. So if there's things you want to find out more about during the presentations, feel free to do those, and we'll either take them during the presentations or we'll save them up to the end. We've also got some polls lined up, so we'll be doing those as we go through the webinar. And I am going to be recording this, so we'll have it all available afterwards. And the plan there is that it's a resource for other people who can't actually join in the webinar today. They can always revisit the slides afterwards. If you're struggling to hear and it's down to your own internet connection, you can always dial in on a normal phone line, which is that's on the screen there, the number, or you can revert back. It's all the details are in the emails that you've received as well. So just a quick one to get us going. What makes a social enterprise? So it's really about having clear social or environmental mission set out. So people say it's about looking after the people and the planet as well as purely just commercial imperatives. And it's about generating most of your income through trade and also reinvesting the majority of profits. Being separate from public sector organisations as well, and having a main focus on your social mission and being accountable and transparent. So this is the definition from Social Enterprise UK, but it is quite flexible. It is a bit of a movable feast, and different organisations describe themselves as social enterprises. Some charities describe themselves as social enterprises. It's not set out in tablets of stone, but it's around these main principles. This is what I tend to use. Just out of interest, I'm going to do a quick poll now just to see what people how clear people are. So if you could just vote on that, that would be really useful. It should be on your screen now. That'll give us a bit of a clearer idea what people actually think. At the moment, it's looking like everyone's quite clear. We haven't got a clue in the audience, which is excellent. Okay, so yeah, that's about 2/3 of people who are interested, who do know about it. I'll just stick that on the screen there. Yeah, so about 2/3 are crystal clear, which is brilliant. So moving on, in the UK, there's about 70,000 social enterprises, employing almost 1 million people, and that's a huge amount of money going into the local economy, 18.5 billion. And I think what the trends we're seeing are social enterprises tend to be quite a dynamic, they tend to be quite fashionable at the moment, quite dynamic businesses. And they're also quite focused in relatively deprived communities and good at creating jobs. But I suppose that's the UK picture. What I'd like to do now is just look at the Cumbria picture. And I think what we're going to do, I'm going to close that last poll, but I'm going to do another one for you here. So how many social enterprises are there in Cumbria? What do you think of that? And just while you're on that, I'm going to show you a couple of social enterprises do all sorts of things. And in the Netherlands, there's a social enterprise that makes mobile phones. I don't know if you can see that. I don't know if you can see that on the video. This is my Fairphone, which was made by a social enterprise. And also these cufflinks that I've got here, they were made by social enterprises, a social enterprise called Elvis and Cressy. So again, there's a huge diversity of different social enterprises that are actually making these things. Okay, so the results for that poll are in. We've got less than 100 is the most popular one, 500 to 1,000 and over 1,000. So actually, if we look at the Cumbria picture, we've got about between 700 and 800. We're in the process of refreshing the survey at the moment, but that was when the last time we counted. There was that sort of figure. So 3 of you got that right. Well done. The actual contribution they're making to the economy between 4,000 jobs, 5,000 volunteers, but there's a huge variation in the type of social enterprises and also the size. I'm hoping that you'll get a sense of that when we take the talk from the panelists in a couple of minutes. So operating across a really wide range of sectors, and in the county, the Cumbria Social Enterprise Partnership provides a bit of an overview for that. Right. So let me just go back one. I think on that note, I'm going to bring in Martin, who's going to talk about the County Council's view on all this.
So, thanks, Daniel. Hi, everyone. I'm Martin Allman. I'm the Economic Programmes Manager with Cumbria County Council, and I have a very joyful job of managing the relationship between the County Council and the Cumbria Social Enterprise Partnership. And the County Council's had a long-standing commitment to social enterprise in Cumbria, both through a financial commitment, but then also by being a part of the partnership. And in the past, we have offered secretariat to the partnership, and we've also employed an officer to do that animation and development of the sector itself. Now, as you can imagine, since 2010 and the age of austerity, that support we've been able to maintain, but it's been severely disrupted and reduced, as all the county council's budgets are. And by 2020, there'll be no direct support from central government to local authorities, and we'll just have to make do with the money that we can gain through council tax and that which we can earn for ourselves through selling services. So it's a very difficult situation that the public sector finds itself in. And this is sort of like steeled our resolve, really, about how we go about supporting the social enterprise sector. We still have some financial support to the sector. It's much reduced, but what it's enabled us to do is to put together a small but really well-shaped contract that can give social enterprises business support on a tailor-made basis, really. So whether you're starting up a social enterprise or whether you're an existing social enterprise, through the consortium that we've put together and being led by Cybermore, again, another social enterprise, we've been able to put a business support package together for any type of organisation. And I think it's a really, really focused program that we've got now of business support, anything from governance, finance and funding, to helping you set up and plan your business. We're able to do that tailor-made response to it. There's also network opportunities that the contract is providing for us, and this is the opportunity for social enterprises to meet with others, learn from others, and give that peer-to-peer support. And I think that's really important in this sort of environment that we find ourselves in. No one organisation or individual has got all the answers, but collectively, perhaps we can find them. We will be holding an annual conference and the AGM, I think in September of this year. And that'll give us ourselves a chance to look back, see what's worked well and what would be even better if we could continue this. And I've already started to have conversations internally to see whether we can continue with the support that we're giving the sector. I think what we've got at the moment is a good offer that can get you started and take you to the next stage in your enterprise. And I know that some of the existing enterprises, social enterprises that have worked with CSEP beforehand have taken advantage of the current offer that we have as well. Why we're doing it? Well, the County Council is a provider of many social type support, whether it's children's, adults or business support programs. And the challenge that faces us in terms of financially means that we really have to work in a wider sort of partnership. Some of the areas that we have to deliver would only be delivered either by the public sector or through that less than profit motivated, something that's got more of a social conscience rather than purely for profit. So we're very closely aligned between what we do, and this new contract is actually looking at some of the opportunities that might exist for social enterprises to step in where the public sector is being forced to retreat. So, as I say, we're very closely aligned. I think we're looking for the same thing to benefit the great Cumbrian public. Looking to the future, I'm talking with my bosses at the moment to see whether we can continue to do this support. I'm hearing good vibrations, for want of a better term, and I know that the new chief executive is very interested in this sort of activity as well. So it's a watch this space thing on that, and we really hope to be doing more of this type of thing if people find it useful. If you've any interest in supporting or getting involved in a social enterprise, please do make contact with us, and we can put you in touch with the right people. So I think that's me, Daniel. Back over to you.
Great, thanks very much, Martin. Has anyone got any questions for Martin? They can type them in the text box with Q&A that they've got, and we can fire them across now. Don't have to do it immediately, but if you have got any, now would be a good time to do it. If not, I'll crack on, and then we can always come back to those later. So just in terms of the social enterprise in Cumbria, we've covered that. What is always quite useful in terms of understanding what social enterprises do in Cumbria. We've had the Social Enterprise UK take on it, but this is what a slide that we put together for CSEP a while back, and I think it gives a bit more of a flavour of why some of these social enterprises in Cumbria often work. A lot of it is around trying to serve markets and communities which can't access services from the mainstream private sector, and public sector service delivery is pretty borderline. So, you know, the profit margins just aren't in there. And there's potentially gaps that have been left by the private sector. And in Cumbria, we've got some really amazingly entrepreneurial communities who go out and say, right, I'm just going to do this for my village or for my town or for my neighborhood because we haven't got it, and we're never going to get it if we just sit there expecting someone else to do it. So those are some of the definitions that have come in over the years in terms of trying to categorise what makes Cumbrian social enterprises so special. Because Cybermoor is based in Alston, we always come back to Alston Moor as the best exemplar of this in the county. It was the world's first social enterprise town, and that was partly because of the very high volume of social enterprises just around Alston Moor, you know, going to Nenthead, where you've got the world's first social enterprise snowplow, right the way through to Cybermoor, which I'm heavily involved with in Alston. And then you've got things like the South Tynedale Railway, the Hub Museum, Alston Moor Fitness Club. So a whole range of different social enterprises delivering services. And people always say, well, what is it about Alston Moor that makes it such a hotspot for social enterprise? And I always say that it's because of the isolation. People realise that if they don't get up and do something, it's never going to happen. But also a sense that if you actually work together and involve your customers with the delivery of the service, the development of that social enterprise, then you're going to achieve a whole lot more than if you set up as a sole trader and then go out and try and do everything yourself. So that's been a real success for Alston, being that social enterprise place. And I know that something that the county council is interested in is looking to see how part of that can be extended out across the rest of Cumbria. Okay, so that's a quick overview of social enterprises in the UK and Cumbria. I've got a question coming in from Anna to you, Martin, about, does the County Council list social enterprises currently operating in Cumbria, or is this list available elsewhere? So I'm going to just bring it back. Do you want to answer that, Martin?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I think there is a list of current members of the Social Enterprise Partnership on the CSEP website. Whether we've got a full list of all the social enterprises in the county, I should have to double check, to be honest. I'll take that away and look into it.
Yeah, I think it's something that is going to be refreshed this summer as part of the work that CSEP is doing. So we should have a much more accurate list by the time we get to September, because we'll be going around phoning people up, but also promoting the fact that we're doing the survey. So hopefully we'll be able to identify new social enterprises that have emerged since the last time we did the survey, which is going back a few years now, and it basically needs to be updated. Right, so I've been doing a lot of talking. We've got some really fantastic speakers lined up now, and I'm going to hand over in the first instance to Rachel Holiday from Time to Change West Cumbria. So let's just see. Hopefully your video is going to come on, Rachel, and we'll, yeah, there we go. I can see you. Fantastic. So now Rachel's just going to explain a bit about Time to Change, how they started, what they do now, where they're going in the future. Okay, over to you, Rachel.
Hiya, everybody. I don't know what just happened there, but my screen sort of, I think it's kicked me out, Daniel. But I can hear you all, so I'll just talk if that's all right.
Yeah, I can see you perfectly. Yeah.
Oh, can you? All right. Okay, that's great. Okay, so first of all, why did I set up a social enterprise? Well, during my teenage years, I found myself homeless over a period of around 18 months. And although I was never street homeless, I did a lot of what was called sofa surfing. That number of people who sofa surf in around the country has grown rapidly. Now, after I became homeless and I got myself sorted out, I got myself into work, what I realised was working in the homeless sector was that we were desperately in need of a homeless hostel. We needed somewhere where on the day that somebody becomes homeless, they can go to it, it's fully staffed, it has all the things that they need in there, so the likes of food, a kitchen, some good staff, Wi-Fi, on your ensuite bedrooms, etc., etc. So I went around the country and looked at a few models, but my first port of call was actually through CSEP, so Cumbria Social Enterprise Partnership, and they had some European Social Fund money, and they gave that to a consultant who helped me to write my business plan. And to begin with, I didn't really have a clue what I was doing, but I just knew I needed to get this place opened. I also knew that we had lots of empty government properties in the UK. There was 1.4 million empty properties in the UK, and we had over 400,000 homeless people. So I started looking at empty properties near where I was, and one of the empty properties was an old police station that was being closed down, and it was being looked to be sold off. So I met with the Police and Crime Commissioner and I asked him if he would give me that police station for £1 a year, which is what's called a peppercorn rent. I would get the money together to convert it into a homeless hostel, and then because I wasn't paying any rent, all the money that came into the hostel would fund the staff, would fund the food, would fund everything else. If I had to pay rent on the building, my business model wouldn't have stacked up. So off I went, I started getting some funding in, and I went to lots of different funding organisations, and eventually I got over £500,000. The bills went out to an architect, he designed the building. I had lots of different input from local council, from county council, from lots of local business people, and Egremont Town Council, all sorts of people to help me on my way. And the reason I called my organisation Time to Change West Cumbria was because I felt it was important to change people's views and opinions of homelessness in West Cumbria. We have a lot of people who thought, well, we didn't have a homeless problem, or a lot of people who thought, well, if you're homeless, it's your own fault. If you're homeless, you must be a drug addict. So I wanted to challenge all those views and opinions, and setting up a CIC, a community interest company, was a really simple way of getting my company off the ground. And it's been a really flexible model. So we opened the doors to Calderwood House in October 2015, and we've had over 75 people through the doors. And well, I think it's been a great success. I love social enterprise. I think it's a fantastic model to use, and I hope lots of other people will look to use it in the future. I sort of had a list of what I was going to talk about. That was kind of a bit about why I set it up. Also, so the services we provide. So another example of how social enterprise works well. What we did was there's lots of different ways to get money into the hostel. We don't actually get any sort of like national or local like council money. So what we have to do is earn it ourselves. So one idea I had was to go down the coffee market. So we have our own Calderwood House coffee, roasted in Kendal. It's sent up to us at Calderwood House, and we package it and sell it out into our community. Lots of businesses buy it from us, and basically what we say to people is by swapping your coffee choice, you can keep a roof over somebody's head by just having a cup of coffee. We also have an amazing barista machine in our hostel where all the residents can train how to make proper coffee. And then leading on from that, we've just invested in a coffee van. So this can go out to events. We recently had it at Yacht View's car park at Sellafield, selling coffee to all the workers going onto site. This also gives the residents work experience and brings in an income for us, and that's just a small social enterprise run within our large social enterprise, which is the hostel. And I just want to tell you a little story about a lady called Amy. Amy was homeless. She came to us, had lots of problems, mental health problems, drug problems, and her family had fallen apart and she was in a really low way. And she came to us, and literally within 3 months of her being with us, the change in her was absolutely phenomenal. And what we said is, look, let's have a dragon's den within the hostel. Let's see if there's any of the residents who would like to set up their own business, and let's back them. So Amy went out and did market research on a car balloting business, social enterprise again, because the money would come into Calderwood House. And Amy went out, did a market research, spoke to a lot of people, got a business plan put together, went and did her training at Commerce of Trade through Energist Building, and she's now moved out. She's got her own place, and she's a couple of weeks away from setting up that brand new social enterprise. And what we're going to do is, she's got a logo, she's got a website, she's got the equipment, she's all ready to go. She's going to try it out at Calderwood House over the weekends for the next few weeks. And if she gets a clientele up and she manages to, make a business of it, we'll just send her on her way with that very own business, and she'll be self-sufficient. And that's another lovely little story that I just want to share with you about the great work we do at Calderwood House. And I think that's kind of it, Daniel. If you want to talk about anything else, I don't know.
Okay, no, that was absolutely fantastic. What I'm going to do is just run this poll that we'd set up. People should see it on their screen now, and it's just to give people, I mean, I didn't have a clue how many homeless people there were in Copeland until I started talking to Rachel about it. But it is a big problem in Cumbria, and I know that it's fantastic, all the stuff that has happened out with Time to Change in Calderwood House. So let me share the results on that. So Rachel, what actually is how many homeless people are there in Copeland? So that's a rough.
What we do is we do per year, so from April to April, and the last poll that I had, so from April 2016 to April 2017, there was over 400 people went down to Cumbria Council to ask for help with a housing issue. So this isn't necessarily homeless, but this could be an eviction notice. This could be somebody's marriage is breaking down and they don't know where they're going to go. Copeland Borough Council does fantastic things with prevention. So we're all for preventing homelessness happening in the first place. However, we can't prevent all homelessness. So I think after those, like up to 400 people, around 200 of those had nowhere to go that night. So, we've got people sleeping in cars. We've got people in overcrowded housing. We've got people who stay places that aren't safe. Young girls at risk of being sexually exploited just to have a roof over their head. So although we don't have a cardboard city, we just literally have a handful of rough sleepers in Allerdale and a handful in Copeland. We have hundreds of people with nowhere safe to stay, and that's a really big issue for me. Well, for all of us actually. Most of us are just 3 paydays away from homelessness ourselves, and that's the statistic. So we've all got to be very aware that, say your income stops tomorrow for whatever reason, in 3 months' time you could be facing homelessness. So it's a problem that everybody needs to be concerned about.
Yeah. And I think what's really great about your social enterprise is that you've had the support from CSEP to start it up at the beginning, but then also over the years, as the Cumbria Social Enterprise Partnership has developed, you've been able to tap into do things like the coffee van, which has generated revenue for you, which you can then invest how you want. So you're not tied into grant money as much as you were at the start.
Yeah. The thing with the grant money is, although obviously you need grant money to get up and running, I fight every day to get away from the grant money dependency. It's, you know, the effort might as well go into running a little business which brings in the money rather than filling out application forms, just taking, you know, thousands and thousands and then having to evaluate it all and all that. And it's not sustainable. You need these revenue streams, however which way they're going to come about, to fund what you do. What I'm proud of what we do is that we staff that building 24 hours a day with working staff. And a lot of people say, well, why do that? If you just half your staff, you know, you wouldn't have to find all this money. But if we halved our staff or didn't have night staff, for instance, we wouldn't have the fantastic outcomes we have. People who come to Calderwood House need support. They need to know at 3 o'clock in the morning when they're really worried about something or feeling really unwell that someone's there to talk to. So I always say, don't look down at what we can cut out of the budget. Let's look up and see different ways of how we bring that in.
Brilliant, yeah. And I think the other, you know, I know it's a big issue for the county council at the moment, how they reuse the different public assets. And I mean, you're a great example of, you know, taking that police station that was, you know, the police couldn't afford to run anymore, and reusing that for something else. Okay, have we got any questions from the audience or the panelists? Someone wants to type one in? Just while we're doing that, the poll results, most people have got it down as over 100. They think it's over 100, yeah. So that's What do you think of that? Does that tie in with the perceptions of homelessness in Copeland that you face when you go out and speak to people?
I think it's changed a lot, people's perceptions of homelessness. I can see it all the time. The sheer weight of the community behind Calderwood House, the amount of people who come in, who want to fundraise, who want to do something about it, it's just changed. You know, when I was first setting this organisation up, we just had people saying, but there isn't any homeless, what are you talking about? You know, no one could really understand why we would need a homeless hostel. And now, it's almost like people they just love it. They love what it does, and they realise that the people that are going into the hostel aren't, you know, what they would first think is someone who is homeless. You know, it's not just some old guy sat on the street with a paper bag or whatever. These are like, you know, I've had bankers come through. I've had ex-custody sergeants, teachers. You know, and as the time has gone on and we've kind of case studied the people that were coming through our community who need Calderwood House, more people are opening their eyes and realising, yes, there's hundreds of people out there that need our help, and there's hundreds of people in Allerdale who need the help. Statistics are a funny thing, aren't they? We want to look good, I get that, but we've also got to be realistic and face the facts that we haven't got enough decent housing for everybody. And whilst there's a housing crisis, we need places like Calderwood House to exist.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks very much. I've not got any questions at the moment, so we're going to move on to Rebecca. So thanks very much, Rachel, but stick around. It may be that at the end people have got more questions as we go through. So next up, we've got Rebecca talking about creative well-being. And before we do that, we've just got another little poll for you to do. So you should see that on your screen now. And Rebecca's going to explain a bit about the great work that they do around Carlisle. So I'm going to hand over to you now, Rebecca. Are you okay? Can you?
I am, yes. Yeah. Hi everybody. So my name's Rebecca. I'm founder and director of Creative Wellbeing. And what we do is we provide creative activities, a really broad range of creative activities, which are open to any member of the community as a way to enhance personal and physical well-being, personal and community well-being. Now, one of the reasons why I set this up, similar to Rachel, was that I felt that there was a gap there, certainly for people to come together regardless of their situation or their circumstance or perhaps their diagnosis, and actually enhance their creative skills, which is developing problem-solving ability, resilience. So what we did was we accessed some support through Cumbria Social Enterprise Partnership initially, to get some guidance about what sort of structure we could take. And it was really important to us, in the same way that Martin mentioned about there really being quite an extended partnership working in order to enhance services. What we've done at Creative Wellbeing is we've built links with organisations, with the statutory and non-statutory services within the areas that we've operated in. So we currently operate in Carlisle. We have previously run projects in Allerdale and Copeland, and we will be doing some delivery in Allerdale and Copeland later in the year as part of a creative energy project, which we secured funding for earlier in the year. But that partnership work was really core to the successes that we've had and the amount of people that we've managed to attract to our service. And Rachel just touched on it as well. Actually, sometimes people have an idea about the sort of people or the type of person that might need to access a wellbeing service. And actually, we all have well-being, and this is where the poll question has originated from, is we all do have well-being, and it's how important that well-being is for you, because actually the range of people that we have attracted is from retired professionals to working professionals. We have people that currently have homelessness problems, that access the community mental health teams, that access Mind or Age UK. Really, we open our doors to everybody, regardless of those situations and circumstances, because one of the things that I found in my previous work experience was that a lot of services actually isolated people. So services were designed for people with mental health problems or with physical health problems, or who were over the age of 65. And actually what those groups did, while they provided a very important support for people within those groups, they also potentially isolated people into those groups rather than giving people an opportunity to mix with the wider community, which is representative of society. And there has been very thorough research now that the broader, the more diverse the community that you can mix with, the better the health and the better the average IQ even in that community. So diversity is a really important thing for us to celebrate. And certainly some of those things that Martin mentioned about the partnership working, and that Rachel mentioned about perhaps a presumption about a sort of person that might access certain services. We felt that it was really important that we had an opportunity to challenge those views and opinions within a mixed and very friendly and welcoming forum. So what we are is we are a company limited by guarantee. We're a social enterprise which is not for profit. That means that we can remain independent and transparent, and have a very clear statement about the social benefit. And what that's allowing, certainly from my perspective as somebody who runs a social enterprise, is that the community can contribute to that, and the community benefits from that directly. So it's a very empowering structure to have within a community, because it ensures that it directly serves the community that it's working within, which is sometimes when there is a priority on making profit, potentially that's sometimes at the expense of actually the delivery of a high quality service to people. And that's what we didn't want to happen. So what we do at the moment is we provide a drop-in session every Friday at Carlisle train station on platform 1. And anybody is welcome to come along to that session. We have people who have, our youngest participant has been 6 months, who's come along with a parent, and our oldest participant was 97, who came along with her 72-year-old daughter. And there is all sorts of creativity that goes on at Creative Wellbeing. One of the things that we try to encourage is that we're really not very prescriptive about what creativity is, or what wellbeing is, in fact, because actually what creativity is to one person can be very subjective, And similarly, what well-being can be for one person can be very subjective. So what we're encouraging people to do is to come along into our forum, develop their creative skills, mix with a broad range of the community, and allow some peer-to-peer support to happen. So what we found is that now that we're into our 5th year of delivery, and we've continued delivery in Carlisle, even when there hasn't been grant funding or funded activities, is that we've had people involved for that full 5 years. We've had people that have been involved for a period of months and then we don't see for a little while, and then we'll come back into the service and we'll see again. They may be involved for a longer period of time. It's really down to the individual that gets involved. But what all of those people have said is that they can't now go into Carlisle without having somebody to say hello to, and having somebody wave at them and say, hi, how are you doing? And one of the things that, I mean, a lot of people will think, oh, well, creative wellbeing, we'll want you to create a wonderful watercolour and a fabulous embroidered cushion. Really, the creativity comes second to actually the social contact that the forum facilitates. So somebody can come into our drop-in session and they will be greeted by name. They will be asked how their week was, how they were. And quite often that will be the only social contact that those individuals have throughout the week. So it becomes a really important part of their social interaction. In fact, potentially their only social interaction that they're having. And by coming down to the train station, they're directly in the heart of the community already as well. So we're really trying to build up people's well-being, confidence, their resilience to life's ups and downs, which we all experience, through developing that those creative skills. An enormous amount of people have said to me that they're not creative, and then when discussing it, we'll talk about the gardening and the cooking and the decorating and all the many, many ways that people can be creative and that you can incorporate creativity into your everyday life. And all of those things, again, they're helping to develop problem-solving ability and resilience. And if we're not resilient to life's up and down, then that's really, that's what our focus is enhancing well-being for, on a personal level and in terms of the communities that we work within. So I think I've covered everything there. I apologise if that was a little bit of blast of lots and lots of information.
No, that's great. That's great. Thanks very much, Rebecca. And don't forget, the beauty of this is it is going to be recorded. So if people do want to go back and listen to it again and they feel that they've missed something, then that's always, there's an opportunity to do that. So we had a couple of questions that came in. One of these was from Gillian just then. If there is no funding, how do you make money to sustain your activity? Do you want to answer that, Rebecca?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Well, one of the things, we generate income by trade of items made at Creative Wellbeing for sale. We do also access some grant funding. And we also encourage donations from individuals who can afford it within the community and of the participant base. Now, frequently we'll have people come to sessions who can't afford to make even the most minimal donation. And what we don't want to do is to exclude them by introducing a fee for attending. So we're very conscious about keeping that at donations because we want people to be able to access the services. In the same way that Rachel mentioned about developing her partnership with the PCC and paying her peppercorn rent, at Creative Wellbeing, we've worked really, really very hard on developing partnerships that will support the continuance of creative wellbeing. So that's encouraging organisations, whether it's local not-for-profits or local charities or even corporate bodies, to actually to support you in some way. That has been core really to continuing creative wellbeing. It's been that in-kind support and the partnerships that we've been able to build. And again, going back to what Martin said, that partnership working really is so important to developing services. So I hope that answered it a little bit. Another thing is that actually as a manager of social enterprise and somebody who I am self-employed, so I'm not actually employed by the organisation because we're not big enough to have employees currently. So everybody that we employ is self-employed. So again, slightly different structure to other social enterprises. But that has meant that there has had to be a degree of flexibility in terms of whether you're prepared to keep putting that being a body in a room and to keep the doors open, even when potentially there's not a guarantee that you will be paid for that session. So creative wellbeing has been a labour of love. It is a labour of love. We're becoming more and more sustainable every single year. But we wouldn't be where we were now if it hadn't been for that times when you have to go that extra mile yourself personally, and without those partnerships who have supported the continuance and the development of creative wellbeing.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks very much. We did the poll earlier. I'm just going to share the results quickly, so you've got those on screen.
That is excellent to see. Fantastic response.
Right, now we're going to move on to Richard's presentation about Greenwich Leisure. So let me just bring that onto the screen. And okay, Richard, are you ready to take it away?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity today to talk a little bit about Greenwich Leisure Limited. As the name would suggest, we're a London-based social enterprise that have grown over the last sort of 23 years, and I'll talk a little bit what that growth looks like in a while. I think it's probably important to say that in terms of scale, we're a huge social enterprise, and again, I'll come on and sort of highlight what that means. In Cumbria, just as an example about what we do and who we are in Cumbria, because that's obviously what we're talking about today. We work in partnership with local authorities, and we operate publicly owned leisure and cultural facilities for local authorities. So as an example, in Carlisle, we manage the Sand Centre, Morton Pool, Trinity Pool. In South Lakes, we operate in the Leisure Centre, Ulverston, etc., etc. So that's our bread and butter, is providing those types of services for local authorities. Daniel, how do I click on to the next slide? Sorry.
Just click. It should work.
Oh yeah, great. Oh, go back. I probably don't need to labour this because I think it's been touched on a number of times, but that's very much our ethos as well, as with the other social enterprises that have come on and spoke today. We're very much about providing community activities, engaging with the communities. We're a not-for-profit organisation, however, we do aim to make a surplus that we can then invest back into services, which is an important part of being a social enterprise. It means that we're able to be relatively sustainable. So in terms of what that looks like as our business today, and I think we'll get the picture now in terms of scale. This was last year's figures, and we've grown again since this slide was produced. But in 2016, we turned over £252 million purely through operating facilities, grant funding, etc., etc. And as it says on the screen there, we operate 240 leisure centres, sports facilities, 60 libraries. We also manage things like prisons, we manage theatres, we manage golf courses. So the actual number of facilities we operate now across the country is around about 400. And I'll talk about this year's financial performance in a minute. We employ 4,000, that's more like 5,000 full-time members of staff now, around about 6,000 part-time members of staff, and obviously have a lot of casual staff. And obviously, true to our social enterprise values, a lot of capital investment has gone into the facilities that we we manage nationally. So £100 million has gone in over the lifespan of GLL, and in 2016 alone, we invested £17 million in facilities. Now, some of those were acquisitions, facilities that we bought. Some of those were massive refurbishments, but £17 million is a big chunk of money. Core to what we try and do, and I'll talk about it a little bit about it later on, is we have our own GLL college, and part of our surplus is invested into the college, and that college provides a number of different things. It provides our staff training, but it also provides opportunities for community that we serve in who have careers with GLL. And an example of that would be, we've recently done some work with Cumbria Youth Alliance, based over in Workington. We've offered 14 young people on their programme an opportunity to be trainees with GLL, and they also now have the opportunity to be our next apprentices, and I think 6 of those will now become our apprentices. We interviewed for them for those positions last week. So again, sort of true to our social values, you know, trying to make sure that we can have an impact on the local community, but also have an impact on local unemployment and giving young people a good start in life as well. And then the sort of bottom bit of that slide there, with the largest public leisure provider across in the UK, largest health and fitness provider, both public and private, with the largest swimming pool provider and the largest public tennis provider, interestingly. So we're a big social enterprise. We like to sing and dance about that because it puts us in a good position in terms of business growth. Okay, I'll move on. So what do we operate? What does it look like? I'll quickly run through this. So as I said before, essentially leisure centres, low-cost gyms are our bread and butter. We do have an events and conferencing arm as well, that we manage primarily in London, but we do have a little bit of that in the North region as well. We operate theatres and libraries, as I said. The community, the GLL Sport spider diagram bit on the right hand side there, that's very much around engaging with our local communities and making sure that we support our local clubs, we support our local authorities. We provide good opportunities for the community to take part in sport and physical activity. And I'll talk about the Sports Foundation in a minute, because that's a particular programme that we run. We work with local public health and NHS providers to run health-wise schemes in our partnerships, which is essentially an exercise on referral programme. We try and operate that in partnership with other providers and in partnership with local health services. We operate a number of parks and open spaces. I mentioned the GLL College before. That is essentially around, as I say, training our members of staff, providing pathways for new employees through to careers with GLL. And we also manage children's services, children's centres, and adventure play. Now, not all of those strands of what we operate feature in Cumbria. Some of them do, but certainly libraries as an example. We don't manage any libraries in Cumbria, and we currently don't manage any children's centres as an example. So that's the array of kind of services we could provide to a local authority partner. And then just to give you a sort of idea of how we're split as a company. So, you know, bearing in mind that we've got nearly 12,000 employees and we manage nearly 400 leisure centres, we're split into regions. So our head office was based in London, as you can imagine, being a London-based company, but we have regions now that are starting to emerge across the country. So Cumbria, as you can see, is part of the North region, and we also operate facilities in Newcastle, Preston, Manchester and York as part of our North region. My role within the North region is to oversee all of our community engagement work, health programmes, sports development programmes, essentially operate our community offer, if you like, across the region. I mentioned growth before. We've been around for 23 years as a social enterprise, and we started off in 1993. And in 1993, we turned over nearly £2 million, and you can see the level of growth over that period. 2018, where we forecast to turn over around about £280 million. That growth is down to a number of things. We obviously win new contracts, or we bid for new contracts, and we win new contracts, so that the growth is reflected in that. But also our partnerships that we've had for a number of years. As I say, we invest capital into those partnerships, and that capital normally equals more people using our centres, more income generated through memberships, etc., etc. Just out of interest, out of that 274 million that we're due to make this year, somewhere between 2 and 4% of that is what we then bank to invest into capital projects, community projects. The rest of that is literally to pay for the operation of the company. Okay, so this slide sort of sums up our whole approach, our whole ethos, if you like, as GLL. So one or two Rachel and Rebecca mentioned before around the need to generate income to sustain the social enterprise, and that's essentially what we do through our better service pillar, which is around providing good services in centres, offering memberships, offering quality leisure experiences that people pay for. Hence we generate an income to pay for the service that we provide, and obviously a proportion of that income then is invested back into the community. The Better People pillar is all about, very much about recruiting people, training them, and developing them, into our next duty managers, centre managers, regional managers. We have a pathway from the apprenticeships that I mentioned before, right through to those people becoming our next general managers, duty managers at centres within a 4-year period, and the college manage that process for us. The Better Communities pillar, I'll touch on that a little bit more later on. That's very much at our heart, and that's the area of work that I'm responsible for in the North region, is our communities pillar, and we invest heavily into that, and we have a number of different community projects and schemes that we roll out into communities to put something back into the communities that we operate in. And the Better Business pillar is essentially making sure that our business is sustainable, and making decisions around finance, and making good solid decisions around good business decisions in terms of acquiring new buildings or new leisure centres, or bidding for new work. We would only do that if it makes sense for us to do that as a business. Hence, the whole sustainability conversation that we've had previously. And just finish off by running through a couple of the actual tangible things that. Oh, do I press that, Daniel? Oh, there we go. Sorry. So GLL's Community Foundation is a crowdfunding platform that we operate in partnership with Space Hive. And the idea is that we push this out to our local communities within the centres that we operate, and encourage those local communities to pitch their ideas to us. We will ordinarily give a cash contribution or provide some in-kind support for that project. And the project leads, so the community groups leading that project, will use the platform to try and generate pledges to meet their targets. So we operate that relatively new. We're starting to operate it in Cumbria. We've got a couple of programs, a couple of projects that are going through the process in Cumbria, but I very much encourage anyone to sort of take that out into their own communities. Indeed, other social enterprises are more than welcome to apply for that. And if you do a Google search under GLL Community Foundation, you'll find the page for that. Another way that we use our between 2 and 4% investment into community activity is that we support local talented athletes, and athletes can apply to the GLL Sports Foundation, and we would ordinarily give them a cash contribution to help them with their training or with their travel or with just their general cost of being an athlete. And we would also give those athletes a training membership, provide them with sports science support, etc., etc. We have a number of high-level ambassadors. So Tom Daly is one of our ambassadors. Anthony Joshua is as well, and Sally Gunnell. So they push the foundation out far and wide in the community. And just so you're aware, we have about 188 athletes across the region on that programme at the moment, and I think right in thinking that there's about 80 odd of those are in Cumbria at the moment. I just run through these quickly. So these are some of the facilities, some of the marquee facilities that we manage nationally. So that's where that's the aquatic centre for the London 2012 Games. Absolutely fantastic facility. Again, another Olympic legacy facility that we manage in London is the Copper Box Arena, which is jam-packed to the rafters every time I go, which is great. We have, just branching out into extreme facilities, so things like trampoline parks, skate parks, adventure climbing, that kind of things. We have about 3 or 4 facilities nationwide that are offering those types of activities. Newcastle is the closest one, just so you guys know. And then more locally, obviously, we operate the Sand Centre, touched on that before. Those of you who've been to the Sand Centre will know that the theatre offer there is nationally recognised as a strong offer, and we're very proud of that. And an example of where investment has gone in to match local authority investment is Workington Leisure Centre, which has recently opened. And for those of you who have been and seen it, I'm sure you'll agree that it's a fantastic community facility as well. Okay, so I probably rabbited on for longer than I should have done, Daniel. Apologise for that, but I hope that gives you a clear idea, clear picture of who GLL are, what we do, how we true to our social enterprise values, and how we invest in communities.
Great. No, thanks very much. So I've got 3 questions that have come in. So first one from Anna is asking, how difficult is it for GLL to balance social outcome goals and the need to make a profit to pay staff?
Yeah, very difficult. It's one of our big challenges at the moment, to be honest with you. We're obviously bound to, through our social enterprise status, to make sure that we the surplus that we generate goes back into communities, goes back into facilities. A balance of that, though, is if we don't have a strong financial year, and this year is an example where I wouldn't say we're struggling financially, but we're certainly looking at ways of being more efficient. This year's a challenge. So as an example, in terms of efficiency, we're looking at reducing the need for travel. So we're looking at more things like Skype calls. We're looking at streamlining our regional service, our regional team. We're looking at using less members of staff in centres and changing rotas around. Just those types of things to make us more efficient. But yeah, it's a massive challenge. It's one of our biggest challenges, certainly across the sector. And with the competition of things like low-cost gyms that offer gyms and access to leisure probably cheaper than we do. Certainly in London and Manchester, we're finding that as a real challenge. But one of those challenges that we try and relish and try and embrace it as best we can.
Okay, great. Couple more. What model or type of social enterprise is Greenwich Leisure? And another one from Gillian: is GLL a separate social enterprise, or is it wholly owned company of Royal Borough of Greenwich that is set up as a social enterprise?
Yeah, I'll answer the second one first. We're a social enterprise set up on the back of the London Borough of Greenwich, our contract in Greenwich. So we were set up on the back of that. So we're a standalone, separate social enterprise. We're not a wholly owned subsidiary of Greenwich. And I think that probably answers the first question as well.
So are you like a company limited by guarantee or
Yes.
a CIC or?
Sorry, yes, we're a CIC.
Okay, great. Okay, right. So we are a little bit over time. I'm going to switch back to the my final slide, which is about support for social enterprises in Cumbria. So through the CSEP program that's active at the moment, there's a few different packages of support. We've got 3 days support for any new startup social enterprises that are focusing on some sort of public service delivery, or 2 days just for any startups which haven't got that sort of public service focus. And there's also 2 days of business support for social enterprises that want to grow and develop. Now, we've had really good take up on those up to now, but hopefully we will get, we're just waiting to get some more funding approved for that from the County Council, so that programme can be extended up to the end of this financial year. So if you're interested in any of those, or you know people who would be interested, then please get in touch with us. My email's coming up in a minute. The other thing that we can do is link you to other support that's available from Co-ops UK, Cumbria Growth Hub, and also social investors that are out there as well. And while we've done this webinar today, this is our first one, we've also got another one planned for September the 8th, which is for people who are thinking of maybe starting up a social enterprise. And we're going to be similar sort of format, getting some real life stories from social entrepreneurs and getting them to explain how they did it, what the challenges were, and how they've managed to sort of overcome those difficulties, but also what the benefits they've felt are. Was mentioned a bit earlier by Social Saturday. That's on the 14th of October. That's coming up. And also we've got the CSEP AGM at Rosehill Theatre, Whitehaven, on the 26th of September. So you're more than welcome to come along to that. We'll have some speakers there, as well as doing the sort of formal business of the AGM. And we're posting more events on the SE Cumbria website. And for people who are there, for people who are watching from the County Council, we are looking to do more events in the districts around Cumbria as well, just to get the social enterprise message out there to communities and groups. So that brings us to the final questions stage. I think we've picked up most of them. We have the Gillian raised one a bit earlier about more information on Allerdale and Copeland delivery. Now, I don't know, I'm going to unmute all the panelists for this. Just bear with me. So if anyone's got if any of the panelists want to chip in on that, I see, Rebecca, you've already answered that. Did you want to say anything about it, Rachel?
Delivery in what way? Copeland, Allerdale, I was sure.
Yeah. Gillian, did you want to say anything about that? I've not got a way to actually bring your audio on. Actually, I suppose I could do. Let me... Gillian, I've just put you on, so we should be able to hear your voice if you've got... let me unmute you. Yeah, Gillian, did you just want to explain what you meant by that question?
The question was actually to Rebecca, when Rebecca was talking about the activity that she was doing in Allerdale and Copeland.
Hi, Gillian. I hope my little text answer responded to that. Previously, we've done a series of 65 activities across Allerdale and Copeland, which were extremely well received and very well attended. And that was done back in 2015, I believe. And that was through some funding which was allocated to us through the county council, through the pots, through Allerdale and Copeland councils. The project that we've got coming up later in the year is the Creative Energy Project, which we were successfully chosen as the People's Choice when there was a People's Vote for money from Sellafield earlier in the year. So that is currently being developed at the moment. So we're looking for really for ideally an October-November delivery, and we're looking for venues in Allerdale and Copeland currently who would be interested in hosting some of those activities for the benefit of their immediate communities and service users.
It's probably worth us having a conversation outside this webinar, I would think.
Absolutely, Gillian. Yeah, if you want to contact me directly, my email is info@creativewellbeing.uk.
Okay, thanks very much.
You're absolutely welcome.
Okay, great. So I think that's all the questions that have been answered. If there's any more questions, now would be a good time to ask it, because we're about to wrap up. I know we've got a bit over time, so sorry about that if people have got other meetings to get to, but it's been important to sort of get all the different feedback and hear the presentations. Did any of the panelists want to add anything?
No, just thank you very much for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Similar to Rachel, thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, I'd like
great to hear about Calderwood House and GLL.
Yeah, so I'd just like to thank everyone that's taken part, the panelists. It's been great to hear about that huge breadth of different social enterprises, and I hope the participants have got a grip that on the sense that, you know, social enterprises can be small but also very large, like with Greenwich Leisure. So we're going to be publishing this on the CSEP website, secumbria.org. And if you've got any follow-up queries after this, I've got the email address on the screen now. So yeah, thanks very much everyone for taking part, and hopefully you can join us for the next webinar in September. Okay, thanks. Bye then.
Thank you. Bye.
Cheerio.
Bye.